All right, let's dive into a really fascinating psychological puzzle, one that honestly affects all of us, from the classroom to the corner office. It's all about what drives us and what happens when our best attempts to motivate someone, well, they completely backfire and kill their motivation instead.
I mean, think about it for a second. When you want to get a kid to do their homework, or maybe an employee to be a little more productive, or heck, even just to get yourself to go to the gym, what's the first tool you usually reach for?
For most of us, right, the answer is some kind of incentive. Money, a prize, a gold star, you name it. But what if I told you that that very reward could be the thing that destroys their genuine passion for doing something? Now, that's the paradox we're going to dig into today. So let's just jump right into the core finding and explore what happens when our best laid plans, well, when they backfire.
This whole phenomenon actually has a name. It's called the overjustification effect. The basic idea is this: when you start paying someone for something they already like doing, you fundamentally change why they do it. See, they stop doing it for the love of the task, and instead, they start doing it just for the reward. And what happens when that reward goes away? You guessed it, so does the motivation.
Now, this isn't just some abstract theory. No, it was actually discovered in this really brilliant experiment back in 1971 by a psychologist named Edward Deci. And it all revolved around a simple puzzle. Okay, so here's how it worked. Over 3 days, two groups of college students were asked to solve some puzzles. On day one, nobody got paid. It was just a baseline. On day two, one group, we'll call them the experimental group, got paid for every puzzle they solved, while the other group, the control group, got nothing. Then, on day three, poof, the reward was taken away. Nobody was paid again. But here's where it gets really interesting. What the researchers were actually watching was what the students did during their breaks. On day two, when the one group was getting paid, they spent way more of their free time playing with a puzzle. No surprise there, right? But the shocker came on day three. Once the money was gone, that same group spent way less free time on the puzzle than they did back on day one, before a reward was even on the table. The money had literally killed their natural interest. So why does this happen? I mean, what is going on in our brains that makes this work? To get that, we need to take a quick look at the psychology of passion itself. You see, it really all comes down to two kinds of motivation. First, you've got intrinsic motivation. That's the joy of doing something just for its own sake. You read a book because you just love the story. Then there's extrinsic motivation. That's the joy of getting something for doing a task. You read that book to win a free pizza. The overjustification effect is basically what happens when that extrinsic motivation comes in and just elbows the intrinsic motivation right out of the way. There's this idea called self-perception theory that helps explain it. It basically says we figure out our own feelings the same way we figure out other people's, by just watching our own behavior. So when we get a big, obvious reward for doing something, we look at what we're doing and we think, I must be doing this for the money. We totally discount our original reason, that we just liked it. But, of course, it gets a little more complicated. Another idea, cognitive evaluation theory, says that the impact of a reward really depends on how we interpret it. See, if a reward feels controlling, like you have to do this thing to get the prize, it just crushes your sense of freedom and kills your motivation. But if it feels informational, like a bonus for a job well done that tells you, hey, you're good at this, it can actually boost your motivation. It's all in the framing. Now, like a lot of things in psychology, this is not a completely settled issue. There's a real debate about how strong this effect actually is in the real world, which makes it a pretty controversial idea. Critics have a few points. First, they say, come on, a lab setting isn't the real world. And they're not wrong. Second, for tasks that are just plain boring to begin with, think about doing the dishes, rewards are actually super effective. Research also shows the effect seems to hit kids a lot harder than adults. So for any parent or manager out there, understanding this debate is crucial because it proves that context is absolutely everything. The answer isn't always so simple. So the huge takeaway from all this isn't that rewards are inherently bad. Not at all. It's that we have to be smart about how we use them, which brings us to the most important question. What is the right way to give a reward? And thankfully, there's a pretty simple mental model we can use to figure this out. It all starts by asking yourself one single question. Is the task actually interesting to begin with? Okay, let's just break that down real quick. First, ask yourself, is this task interesting? If the answer is no, hey, rewards are probably fine. Go for it. But if it is an interesting task, then think about the type of reward. Is it just verbal praise? That's usually great. It feels like recognition. Is it a tangible reward like cash?
Well, try to make it a surprise. An unexpected bonus feels awesome, like pure recognition. The real danger zone is the expected tangible reward for a task someone already enjoys. That's where you seriously risk killing their passion. So, with that little framework in mind, let's look at how this whole thing plays out in the real world, in situations you probably see, well, every single day. In schools, this is a massive topic. You know those programs that reward kids with pizza or whatever for reading books? They've been criticized for this exact reason. The goal, obviously, is to create lifelong readers. But some people worry that these programs just teach kids that the reason to read is to get a prize, not for the actual joy of discovering a new world. And what about at the office? Pay for performance plans can really be a double-edged sword. Some studies have shown they can actually reduce feelings of autonomy and job satisfaction. If the reward feels more like a tool of control instead of a recognition of skill, it can totally backfire. This even applies to the whole modern trend of gamification, adding points and badges and leaderboards to tasks. It can be really engaging. But if those rewards aren't designed carefully to support our natural need for autonomy and feeling competent, they can just turn a fun activity into a mindless grind for points. I mean, the examples are just everywhere you look. One study found that giving volunteers a small payment actually made them work fewer hours. And we've all heard those stories about star athletes whose performance seems to take a nosedive right after they sign a massive multi-million-dollar contract, right? The external reason becomes so enormous, it can just overshadow the internal love of the game. And that really brings us to the core question you should ask yourself. When you use a reward, for your kids, for your team, or even for yourself, are you actually nurturing a genuine, lasting passion? Or are you just temporarily buying a behavior? The answer, as we've seen today, makes all the difference in the world. Thanks for tuning in.